Hey everybody! So today we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about essential dignities and how retrograde motion, how a planet in a chart, retrograde, might change this. So this is going to deviate, this video will deviate from the GC, but the GC is kind of what made me start. Well, no, to be fair, actually, I was thinking about this before doing the GC stuff, but the GC stuff and and the GC's kind of affinity, or it feels like an affinity for retrograde energy, kind of got me thinking about this even more. And I wanted to actually do something out, write a blog post out. It's here. I'm going to reference it a little bit, but it'll be linked to the... If you're watching this on YouTube, you can just like click the link. If you're watching it on Instagram, you'll have to do some weird shit, like either actually copying and pasting the link or typing it out, because they're fucking weird with links. But yeah, how I started really thinking about that, how retrograde motion changes these things, right? Like each planet has a has a home placement or a domicile placement. Each planet has a detriment placement, which is opposite the home placement. Each planet except Pluto. Pluto's the only one that has not been given a place of exaltation and a place of fall. It's the only one that hasn't. But yeah, there's also a sign where each planet is considered exalted, meaning it is at its highest potency. It's able to function at its highest capacity. And then there is a sign for each planet where the planet is in fall, which means it is at its lowest potency or capacity. Whereas detriment, home placement is where the planet is comfortable, right? Like, for instance, the sun is home or domicile in Leo, because the sun is the ruler of Leo. And then the sun would be in detriment in Aquarius, because Aquarius is opposite Leo on the wheel. And then if you just think about the energy, right? Like Aquarius is more collective energy. Leo is more ego identity. So the energies are kind of at odds, right? The sun is also those things. So the sun in Aquarius, there might be not as low of a potency as where it is in fall, but it's not quite as comfortable there, right? That's kind of the idea. And I've got the table and everything. Most people are probably familiar with this. Familiar with this table, I would think. If you're not, take a look at it. I have created one for the blog post. But it's this notion of, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about retrograde planets and thinking about the way that they work. I love working with retrograde planets in general. I love it. They tend to get thought of more negatively. Generally, not everybody that thinks of them this way, but generally I see things about retrograde planets and it's not always real nice. I love working with retrograde planets. And I tend to take I wouldn't say, I guess it is more positive, but really, if you're working with the retrograde energy, right? If you're working with the energy instead of against it, there's not a handicap there. It's when you're trying to, it's when you've got a planet retrograde in your chart and you're trying to function or work that planet from direct motion, and that's not how the fuck it works in your chart. Yeah, it's going to be a problem. But if you work the retrograde energy into your life, but work it from retrograde motion, it just needs to function a little differently, right? But I would not consider it a handicap. It only really becomes a handicap or a problem when you aren't working with the retrograde energy. Like somebody that has Mercury, say Mercury retrograde, but they're trying to function from their Mercury from a direct motion. That person's going to have problems. That's just the case for any for any retrograde planet. So I started thinking about all of this shit, right? And I started thinking about the ideas of planets being, at home and domicile somewhere and detriment somewhere. I'm going to leave exaltation and fall out of this for right now because I'm just playing around with this part first. Plus there's some, Uranus and Neptune, for instance, they have places of of exaltation and fall. They've been assigned those. But they are debated. We have them on the cards. Like, we have this on the star cards. The placements here. I actually agree with Uranus's. I'm not sure I agree with Neptune's, personally. I'm not sure I do. I don't know if I like Neptune exalted in Leo. But but that's where most people have kind of agreed on where it is. But because those two don't, I like Uranus's. I do like Uranus's, but some people don't even like that. So I'm gonna leave the exaltation and fall thing out, and we're just gonna look at the home, domicile, and detriment here, just taking this part into account. But the notion that retrograde planets might actually be more comfortable in the detriment location than in the home location. Now, why would that be? Well, retrograde energy changes things, right? It changes things. You have to work things differently. Meaning, and we're going to take the sun and the moon out of the equation because the sun and the moon don't ever go retrograde, so we're not looking at those here. But for instance, let's take Mercury. Okay? Mercury retrograde Mercury retrograde is noisy. These people get thrown a lot of noise. A lot of noise. You'll even see this maybe collectively when Mercury goes retrograde via transit and we're in a Mercury retrograde period. People might feel this, but these people that have Mercury retrograde in their chart fucking feel it all the time. Okay, so they feel all of this noise. They get so much noise thrown at them that oftentimes they have a hard time discerning and deciphering what actually needs to be taken in the first place, what actually needs to be paid attention to, what actually needs to be listened to. And intuition is a big part of this. These people need to learn how to trust their intuition. They really, really, really do. Now, Mercury, for instance, is at home in Gemini. It's also at home in Virgo. I'm going to use Gemini here, though, because it's considered in detriment in Sagittarius. And since they're on opposite ends of the wheel. So in Gemini, Mercury in Gemini, right, is very, very at home. Mercury direct in Gemini. Mercury retrograde in Gemini feels like it's noisy as fuck. All that communication, all that fucking talking, seriously, it feels like a noisy fucking placement for Mercury retrograde to be. It doesn't feel comfortable. It feels scattered and it feels noisy, quite honestly. Whereas in Sagittarius is a more intuitive sign. It is. It's half man, half horse. It's half in the clouds, half on the ground. To me, Mercury retrograde feels more comfortable here because in the sign of Sagittarius, it can kind of perhaps better use its intuition. It seems like it might be able to. Also, Mercury retrograde needs to be able to see the big picture. Oftentimes, the person gets so much information thrown at them that they can't see the big picture, and instead they have all this fucking information coming at them, and it's like they have to order this, right? They have to order this information piece by piece, step by step, to be able to see the big picture. But they also need to use their intuition and know what to keep and what to get rid of in the first place. And it just feels like in Gemini, Mercury retrograde in Gemini would have a difficult time doing that because of all the noise. Like it would have a difficult time doing that. Whereas in Sagittarius, it actually feels like it might be easier to see the big picture, to be intuitive, to tap into that intuition. It does feel like it would be easier, or it would be more comfortable there. So that's one example. Okay, I'll do Venus. I'll do Venus next. Now, Venus is at home in both Taurus and Libra. It is considered in detriment in Aries. Now, when I think of, when I think of Venus retrograde takes effort. Venus retrograde, these people need to value themselves. They need to love themselves. It's very, very important that they do this, that they learn how to do this. Now, to me, that does feel comfortable in Taurus. It does feel comfortable in Taurus because Taurus is out of the, Libra and Taurus. Taurus is more focused on worth, self-worth, those kinds of things. So Venus retrograde points towards Taurus anyway. The Taurus end of that Venus thing. In Libra though, Venus retrograde does not feel like it would be as comfortable. It just doesn't. Libra energy is more partnership based. It's more partnership focused. Whereas Venus retrograde really does need to learn how to love itself. It really does. To value itself in whatever area of life, Venus retrograde falls in. So in saying that, Venus retrograde in Libra does not feel very comfortable. However, Venus retrograde in Aries, which is where Venus would normally be in detriment, does feel more comfortable. Aries is it's more of a self-focused sign. It is. Which might help Venus retrograde to be able to love itself, find self-worth. Certainly, I would think more easily than Venus retrograde falling in Libra. That's for damn sure. That's for damn sure. This video is getting kind of long, so I probably will do another one to kind of tag onto this. Mentioning just a couple other planets, giving some examples of what I'm talking about. But yeah, I think this is interesting. And let me also say real quick, like, I look at all of this stuff, right? Like, I look at the home domicile placements. I look at detriment placements. I look at all of this stuff in a chart, right? I think it's important to look at. I don't think it's important to hinge your entire fucking chart reading on. And I do notice that people do that. They tend to get too hung up on something being exalted or something being in fall. And yeah, okay, I certainly look at these things, and I'm certainly not saying to not pay attention to them at all. I'm not saying that. If you choose not to pay attention to them, I know people that don't pay attention to them at all, and that, that's fine. I do take them into consideration, though. I do personally. But I don't think your whole fucking reading should hinge on this, if that makes sense. Not unless other things in the chart point to the whole reading needing to hinge on this, on something being in a home placement or in a detriment placement or whatever. I just wanted to bring this out about the retrograde planets because I do think it changes things. I think it even changes where those planets are comfortable. And I don't really ever see this talked about. I don't really know why. Maybe I just haven't been looking in the right places, but I don't see this mentioned. So, but I think it's something to play with. I mean, if you've got retrograde planets in your chart and they happen to be in the traditional sign of detriment, take a look and see if maybe your retrograde planet functions better there, because it might. Or if you have a retrograde planet and it's in its traditional place of, if it's in its traditional place of home, see if that fits, because maybe it doesn't. Maybe your retrograde planet is not as comfortable there as you feel like it should be, because it's in its home placement. I don't know. The idea of retrograde motion just feels like it should kind of flip all of that around a little bit. And probably does do the same for exaltation and fall, but I haven't really looked at that yet. But anyway, I'm going to get going. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Let's Fuck With Astrology. I am at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie is at Avaternal Astrology on Instagram. If you want to like our videos or subscribe to us or whatever the fuck people do on YouTube, you can find us by searching for Let's Fuck With Astrology in the YouTube search bar. If you do the Reddit thing, come join us on the subreddit, Let's Fuck With Astrology. And if you're interested in the star cards, you can go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. Okay, y'all. I'll see y'all later.